Greetings. Unusually this video is in English, mainly because it is sort of a reply towards the most respected Red Pill Germany, whom I greet from this point on. I followed your interesting video called Kissinger criticizes German migration policy because. It was something I was following his statement with great astonishment and as well as a reaction, just like you apparently did. I have nothing more to add because I think the case of Kissinger and why and in what way he is how shall I express it, in puzzlement about it and saying these things. I am in full agreement with what Red Pill Germany said. But there is something in the broader sense, because of in recent debates, recent meaning the last years, is something that is always in the background of my mind. I know that the people we regard, probably rightfully so, as the ones pulling the strings from behind, like Mr. Kissinger or Mr. Schwab or other people of which you may think. That is that book written quite some decades ago. How was it called? It was something about the left wing's guide to power. Rules for Radicals. Yes, that it was. I can't remember the name, but it is easily to look up and probably known to many of you. And one of the rules in this book is, I remember it very clearly, and it is what it's telling it, is you do not only have the power you have, but the power you can make believe the other side or the enemy you have. Meaning, you can impress people into the perspective how powerful and omnipresent and in all control you are. And honestly, I'm sitting in my room reading about the world just like most of us. I'm not sitting at the table when Mr. Kissinger has secret meetings or when Mr. Schwab and his guys meet. So, of course, like most of us, I assume at least, maybe you have sources I don't have, we are mostly in speculation. Of course, we know some things they did, they introduced, they push agendas, they push forward. But something I am, shall I say, warning about or making people to be cautious about is being all too eager to buying the narrative, how powerful they are. And it's not meant as a critique against those who warn against them, because those people are dangerous. I do not doubt this. But personally speaking, first, I do not believe that the world at large, or the future in general, can be controlled to such a degree. I mean, I won't go so far as quote Master Oogway to say control is an illusion, though from my spiritual point of view in the long run, I think it is. But there are two elements in the cosmos, speaking of a spiritual point of view, chaos and order. And one should never underestimate the chaotic element. I remember a saying from Otto von Bismarck that you can't control history, you can just at the right moment grab the cloak, a piece of the cloak of history in passing. And Otto von Bismarck was certainly a man of great control and great power, of great intelligence, and quite capable of, shall we say, manipulating history in a way that suited him and his agenda. The creation of the German Empire in 1871 was largely a result of his intelligent maneuvering, and many of the successes of the Second German Empire were his making. But just studying his own biography, his political, since he became Chancellor of the Second German Reich, is something to be quite educational about the matter. Take his conflict with or against social democracy and his conflict with the Catholic Church, both who, despite his great intelligence and movements, decisions and efforts, were not working out at all as he had desired. And even he had to see that there is a limit to what a man, even with such intelligence and such influence and power, can achieve. First, I do not think that the many people pulling strings behind the curtain are in such an agreement as first they want us to believe, and second, many people wish to believe. And this is a simple reason. I believe personally that for many humans, the idea that there is a plan that is going on is much more comfortable, even if they think it is a bad and negative and destructive and evil and horrible plan, than looking at the world and assuming that there is no one in charge for real, that things can go entirely the wrong way, or shall we say an unexpected way, more objectively. There is this notion widespread, and I believe that people like Mr. Kissinger, Mr. Schwab, and others I do not need to name, partially because you know them, partially because even I can only speculate who these are. Maybe there are people behind them whose names we do not know. I hold this entirely in the realm of the possible, which is not so important. I'm just mentioning it as a possibility to think about. But if you have watched the series Game of Thrones, no matter what you believe how good or bad it is or was, just talking about the TV series, not the books. Never read the books. I've read the first volume, so I'm just talking about Game of Thrones, the film series. Everyone or most of the people involved in this series were trying to grab power. Were playing the Game of Thrones, to which the series is named. And the end result, I'm sorry, spoiler warning. If you don't want to know it, you have to shut down because I'm spoilering something about the ending here. In the end, first, actually nobody got what he or she wanted. And second, most importantly for this debate, in the long perspective of things, is there wasn't any world left worth ruling. And this is a general perspective I have when it comes to questions as this. It leads away from it's not so much a direct reply anymore to Red Pill Germany's thoughts on Kissinger. It's just a thought which I have in my mind for many years now, is that even if all plans would go as they think, as they want, I do not think the outcome would ever be as they imagine. I mean, I know some people are thinking, yeah, the great part of the world will be chaotic, dark, life will be horrible for 98% of the world, or let's just say of the Western world. Who knows what will be in the rest of the world. And they will sit rich in their small, safe areas, protected by their guards and their weapons and whatever they think that protects their riches and their power. And I do believe that is an idiotic illusion. Not so much from our side, from our side, sitting from it, looking at it from below, it is a reasonable assumption to make, but do not believe that these people are so super intelligent as they themselves believe and want us make believe. Because even if the, I don't know, 1% or however many you think will be wish to be the overlords in a new world order, it will not be very pleasant for long for them. For many reasons. One of them is, it is something that I tell people who have a more, broadly speaking, hierarchical, authoritarian view in the world, like saying we need a monarchy, we need an aristocracy, we need few who govern the many. In whatever shape or form, left wing, right wing, whatever, it doesn't matter. That, or especially something I tell to libertarians, who think, oh, well, then some people will be very rich and I don't care. Let's, for example, in a very very substantial way, saying, oh, I don't want that social security exists. I want my money for myself and the rest can fend off however they want. Just for an example, a thought experiment. Well, the result would be that sooner or later, you'd have masses with proverbial pitchforks and torches in front of your manor. And the problem is, as the King of France, Louis XVI, so clearly found out, that no matter how many soldiers you on paper have with guns who on paper are on your side, there is always a breaking point where the police, the personal guard, the army, supposed to serve you and hold the people in check, may no longer be on your side protecting your protected space. I am not a prophet in the sense to say this will come, there will be a revolution, there will be an uprising. But one should never underestimate empty stomachs. There is a saying, I think it was from Lenin, who said that the revolution is only 3 meals away, meaning that when people are actually at the risk of death, like their refrigerators are empty, people have no choice. Because, I mean, there are always people looking at the wars, how many soldiers went into death for the power of others, blindly not caring, because ideology manipulated them to say, oh, it's for the fatherland, it's for the communism, it's for the nobility of the king. Whatever idea you have, yes, you have a lot of people in history who were quite willing to die by the millions for the idea of the ruling of a few. But as we see also in history, this goes only so long. And of course, today you can argue that by technology, we have apparatuses of surveillance, we have machines of propaganda quite outranking anything that is seen before. But there will still need to be some people operating in the ones directly below the ones in power. And history has shown time and time again that these people are not unendingly reliable. And Mr. Kissinger, okay, he's old now. He won't see any new world order just because of his age, or even Mr. Schwab, I believe. But they will have people following in their place, of course, which is one of the stupid ideas of, here in Germany, we had a terror group, a left-wing terror group called the Rote Armee Fraktion, the Red Army faction. And they were of the belief, if only they killed a handful of people they believed in charge, they could toss over the system. Like the chief of the employee, the representative of employers, Hans-Martin Schleyer. He was abducted, and they thought if they just killed these few people in power, they could bring a chance. And of course, it's not that simple. I'm not saying that you should or shouldn't do this. I'm just explaining this as a historian. So no matter what happened to Mr. Kissinger or to Mr. Schwab, just if someone here should have fantasies, if they are gone, it's not that things change, because no matter how powerful, clever in their evil or their planning there are, to a degree they are replaceable, and at the same time they're not. This is a sort of a paradox. Think again of Otto von Bismarck. The Second German Reich was highly dependable on having a chancellor of the skill of Otto von Bismarck. And Bismarck was plagued by something that many such people are plagued with: pride, ego, the belief to be irreplaceable. And very often that leads to the situation that they don't nurture people who can take their place. And when Otto von Bismarck was removed from the Chancellor's office, which by natural courses sooner or later he would be anyway, there was no one there to steer the German Reich instead of him in the same way. And the people who followed were apparently, as history has proven, quite unable to fill that role, although historians have rightfully pointed out that in the last years of the chancellorship of Bismarck, even the control slowly slipped through his fingers. And again, citing the fight to prevent social democracy from rising, or trying to remove the influence of the Catholic Church especially, both were failures despite of this. I'm just saying this first as a sort of encouragement to you. The elite want you to believe they have everything in power. All things go as they want, and they all are in unison in one big scheme, and this is not so. If you study, it is de facto an oligarchy or aristocracy, no matter how you want to name it, and there never, ever has been an aristocracy or oligarchy where all the oligarchs were in agreement, but the reverse is true. Oligarchy or aristocracy or any models of the system is probably the most unstable system of power if you go by the three classic systems: democracy, aristocracy, and monarchy. They are the most unstable because there is the most infighting. And this gives us, I will dare say, a wink of a hope. And going back to Game of Thrones, even if all their wishes come to pass, I mean, it's not really something to be to make inner peace with, because for us, the majority, the plebs, as they would say, it is not really comforting to know that when we live all in the ruins, dying, so soon will they. But it would be, if all their plans, let's take just one example, which is just the topic of Mr. Kissinger's speech, mass migration. There is this idea, and I do believe it is the idea of at least some of those who pull strings, people, the string pullers behind the curtain, and some of them in front of the curtain, who believe, yes, if we just create chaos, it is one of those ideas that is very popular, this order ab chaos, that from chaos that they solve, the order they take over. I'm very skeptical that this will work out. I have some years ago made a video in German, roughly named where I proposed the idea that if the nation state falls, it will not fall upwards to a greater system. Like, if the nation state falls, we will have the European Union as a new system of power for a time maybe, but in the long run, if the nation state falls, we will fall down backwards towards tribalism. And now you may prefer tribalism. It's not to me to say what you should prefer. I do not prefer tribalism for a simple reason. I personally prefer calculable societies. Let me just make a simple example, which in my videos I have often made in German to my German audience. Now, let's imagine you go to, in a regular state with a bureaucracy, you go to a bureaucrat, like, for instance, I'm living from welfare, taking myself an example. So if I go there, there are specific rules and regulations to which I have to keep, and mostly they in front of me have to keep. The person I meet is a bureaucrat. He doesn't know my face, he doesn't know my name, yes, because of the paper. He has no personal relationship with me. It sometimes occurs that for some reason the person in front of you doesn't like you because, I don't know, you remind him of his evil cousin or some bad person he had in school or something like. But it's generally bureaucracy, that's the system that governs our world, is something that is not ruled by personal relations. Why I don't like a tribal society, which some people really favor, is that, yes, if you have a chieftain, for example, say, this chieftain can, of course, like you very much and give you much more than other people. But the downside, if he doesn't like your nose, for some people, or your haircut, or some entirely arbitrary, unimportant, meaningless reason, he can throw you away and throw you into the gutter. And personally speaking, I prefer a system where the relation between people is regulated on an abstract intellectual level and not on personal preference, something which is elementary to the nation state. And this is what I mean. If they try to destroy the organized traditional nation state with mostly in some form homogeneous society, I have a hard time to believe that anyone will be able to truly control this. Especially if we look at the kind of people with the special cultural background, which here on YouTube I will not go into details. You go out in the street in any Western country, you know whom I speak of. They will not be controllable, especially not by people like Mr. Schwab or Mr. Kissinger. What will come of such experiment where they think, hey, yes, we create maximum chaos and then reap the fruit of being the overlord saving them? No. If this plan continues, this will be, as I personally believe, it will be a chaos where nobody is in charge. Not in the long run, not for real. This is just the end of a thought. It's just something that I wanted to throw into the debate, that we are not fooled too much by this idea which they want to project upon us, that they are the great people of everything in power, everything in control. Just look at the many catastrophes of the US-American politics, both internal and external. Now, of course, you may say this is all part of the plan going as intended, but no, I don't think so. Just giving one example of a debate, don't try not to make it too long, that people I know have this notion that, yes, they want to destroy Germany, ruin its economy, to rule easily over it. And maybe they think so. I hold it in the realm of possibility that they believe so, the string pullers. But it's an idiotic perspective, because it won't be the case, for some simple reason. For Germany is a carrying economy of the European Union. And if Germany goes bankrupt and really down the drain, socially, culturally, and especially economically it will be, if all the other things fall apart, then the economy falls apart just as well. And the fallen apart Germany will drag at least all of Europe down, because a lot of the coherence of the European Union is that there is an economic powerhouse like Germany financing the rest and keeping stability and the rest. That is the reality. So the the people who pull the strings may believe that this is a good move for them, but it won't. And I dare say that even that a total breakdown and collapse of Germany will not only extremely negatively affect Europe, but the world. And it's not to say that, oh, Germany is so important, but capitalism, market, and the global politics today is so intertwined, and one should never underestimate the element of psychology. If you look at stock markets, for instance, there is so much irrationality in the reaction. Something banal, in itself not really important, may go wrong, and markets all go down. Just because these people, the agents of the system of economy, are anything but beyond irrational fears. And this will easily trigger cascading effects, even if strictly logically an economic or cultural or societal collapse of Germany may not be of such a logical relevance to other countries. It will be because of psychology. So yes, of course, especially people like me who are on the lower ranks of the ladder will fall first and deepest. So of that I have no doubt. But it is not that the people on the top, the string pullers, will achieve what they desire. In their intelligence of plotting, they are extremely stupid at the same time. And this is one of the things that really every person needs to understand. A person can be extremely educated and extremely intelligent and still be extremely stupid. And I give you one example of my personal life. In 2015, I lost the entirety of my personal friends, which I was physically, people like visiting me. And many of these people I knew for 20, 30 or more years, since elementary school, a few of them. And I remember when I wrote in 2015, there was a movement called Pegida, making a 10-point program to warning about unvetted immigration. And it was a relatively banal, and the demands or suggestions they made were relatively banal and harmless. And I wrote to my friend, or spoke, that a few of those points that Pegida made in 2015 about controlling immigration were at least debatable. And the entirety of my circle of friends turned their back on me and called me a Nazi, and I should never ever talk to them. And beside the personal pain this caused me, which is long behind me, and I'm more on the side of laughing about the stupidity despite the thing having gotten worse. But that's beside the point. The point is, these people were highly educated people. I know this. I knew them for decades. They were, I would say, over average intelligent. They were not stupid people. And they were by and large even empathetic towards me. They were my friends for a very long time. And still, this small thing I did say, they were unable to process the most obvious truths. And it took me quite some years to realize the entirety of the picture, like a person can be highly intelligent, highly educated, and still be in a very different way extremely stupid. And I believe this is the case with people like Mr. Kissinger, Mr. Schwab, and people involved in many other things. So plans will fail. The price we average people, especially those most down on the ladder, may be extremely high, make no mistake about it. But Do not fall into the despair because of believing, oh, they're all so powerful, we can do nothing. It's just some idea that I want people to keep in mind. Well, it's sorry that I kept your time or went in a longer answer, that my replies are usually longer than than the original which I replied to, but it is a thought I wanted to get out. So maybe it gives you at least a glimmer of hope. And not that powerful, and not that wise and smart. And I believe in the heart of my hearts, their plans will fail.